Hello my crafty friends. Today I'm going to be making some interesting tags. For the base of the card, I'm going to be using the technique that's similar to the technique I use in my index card. If you haven't seen that video, I will put a link in the description of this video. And then I'm going to add some embellishments to make the tag look a bit 3D. I'm recycling a greeting card for the first tag. So I just have a greeting card that I have glued together and cut it into the shape of a tag. I haven't really used any measurements. I've just cut a size. I want it quite large, and then I've just cut the corners off to make it into a tag shape. I'm using this number stencil with some gesso to get some texture in the background. It doesn't have to be even or neat. I like that the gesso spills over into some of the other numbers, even though it doesn't pull the whole number in gesso. I just love the texture that it adds to it. I'm thinking to add some of this corrugated cardboard for additional texture, but I can't seem to make it look good, so I'm just going to leave that out. I'm now going to add a little bit of gesso on the other areas, probably something I should have done first. The card inside is a little sort of glossy, so I'm not quite sure how the inks will stay. We'll see now. So I've added a little bit of gesso just around the blank areas. Once it's dry, I'm going to add the inks. I first spray with a little bit of plain water, and then I spray my inks on. These are the Holtz Oxide inks in the spray bottles. I'm splashing some water with a paintbrush onto the ink. I leave it for a few seconds for it to react with the oxide, and then when I press the tissue down and lift, you can see it picks up some of the ink and it leaves us beautiful white spots. I'm adding just a little bit of color with my color burst powders. I'm adding a bit of turquoise, just very little, and then spraying with water. As you can see, they're highly concentrated and a little goes a long way. I'm just adding the water, just letting it run and make some designs, and then I'm going to dry it. Just adding a few dark contrasts. I'm just using the Vintage Photo Oxide ink in the pad that I'm pressing onto the acrylic block, spraying with water, and then pressing onto my tag. And as you can see, it's made some darker areas, and I find that very interesting, and it makes a bit of contrast. I'm now also using the ink pad just to do some edging. We're now ready to embellish the tag. I was going to start with this part, but then realized I needed to put my glue gun on to heat up. So I just have to leave this for a few minutes, and what I'll do in the meantime is I'll do some stamping onto the background with my vintage script and some black ink. Now that my glue gun is hot, I can make these little paper rolls. I'm just using some paper from an old book. I just roll them around a pencil and I just glue the end, and then make these beautiful paper rolls, which add a beautiful embellishment to your tags. For a bit more texture, and because I like things sort of popping off the tag or off the index card or the page, I'm going to add some of this, it's actually Hessian string, and I only have it in small pieces, so I was sort of trying to knot it up and make it into one long piece. It didn't really work, so I've just scrunched it up, and I'm going to add it in the background. The focal point of my tags are going to be these vintage children. Now these gorgeous prints are actually from a Etsy shop from Luise Heinzl. I'll put the link in the description of my video. And what they are is just little vintage kits that she has made in black and white, also available in sepia, that you can print out and use. And I found it a lot easier to use these than trying to search and Google on the internet trying to find them. They're all sort of in one place, and they're all really beautiful and easy to fussy cut and to use in your projects. Now I printed them in half size thinking I'd need a smaller one, but when I put it on my tag I found it too small, so I'm using the full size ones. I'm just sticking it onto a piece of cardstock just to make it a bit more sturdy, and then I've also cut out little butterfly wings that I got off Pinterest that are going to be the wings for my little fairy child. Now I'm just moving the elements around until I get them to look how I want. I want the little vintage child to sort of be like I said, the focal point, but she's going to sort of be on top, so I'm going to raise her up with little bits of cardboard at the back, which I'll show you just shortly before I stick her down. So with my layering, I've added the Hessian string, just some black thread from the sewing machine, and some cheesecloth. And now I'm just playing around with some wooden embellishments or the flowers, and I actually like the flowers in the end, so I'm going to stick everything down with the hot glue. I'm not quite sure why I cut little bits here. I could have just cut strips, but you live and learn. So I'll stick on the little wings, and I'm just going to put a few layers of the cardboard on the back of the child, just so that I will be able to, when I stick it down, for it to be raised off the tag. And then I just glue my little flowers in place. Just measuring the correct spot for my little hole. I'm using my crocodile to punch a hole and then to set an eyelet for the tag. As I'm handling the card, I realize in the bottom right hand corner that it's starting to smudge. Obviously, the paper that I've used from the greeting card hasn't held the ink very well, so I'm going to put a layer of Mod Podge over the top to seal it. And as you'll notice, as I'm doing this, the color is actually changing. The turquoise has gone to a bit of a green, and the browns are becoming more rust. Now it doesn't really matter, I still do like it, but just be wary that the Mod Podge does react with the inks and with the color burst and does change the colors. For me, thankfully, it still all works, and it actually, I do like that rust color it's given it. And there, my first tag is finished. The idea originally was to only make one tag, but now after I had made that, I wanted to make a second one using watercolor paper to see the difference with the inks on a porous paper. So I'm just going to make a very similar one using a slightly different color palette, just to see how it'll work. I'm not sure if you have ever held your heat gun too close to the gesso when drying it, and as you can see it causes a bubbling effect, which I actually like for some of my techniques. I do like the texture that it creates, so I actually on purpose put it a little bit too close to make it bubble and make a little grainy texture. As this process is exactly the same as the first tag, I'm not going to explain it all again and bore you to death. So I'm just going to play some music for your viewing pleasure. If you don't want to listen to the music or you don't like my choice of music, you're welcome to put it on to mute and just watch. Also, if you want to just not watch it at the speed it is on, even though it's high speed, you are able to put it at a higher speed on your YouTube and watch it really fast, or just forward to the sections that you want to see. The wings for this fairy are actually from a piece of wrapping paper that I had. I don't normally work in red, so I thought I'd give it a go, and I really do like the way it turned out. The little flowers I'm also going to color red. I'm just going to use the spray Oxide inks for this, and I'm going to use the red and a bit of a brownie color just to make them not so bright red, more of a vintage red. The little girl is holding a bunch of flowers, which I'm going to just actually cut out because I'm thinking it's blocking the wings and you can't really see the wings very well. So I've just sort of marked where her shoulder would be and her arm, and I've just trimmed that off. I'm just trimming a little bit of the butterfly just so it can suit her, and then I'm just going to glue them on with some hot glue. This time I'm just going to use strips of the cardboard on her back to raise her up. So I'm just gluing those down with some hot glue, and this will give her a raised 3D effect. If you don't have inks to color your paper flowers, you can also use just tea or coffee, like you would tea or coffee stain them. You could also use watered down acrylics or watercolor, or even maybe watercolor pencils. There's a few ways that you could color them to suit your project. Now, after I was done with both, I realized that I wanted to put a little bit of black splatter on them just for the contrast. And I found this a little difficult as I'd already put all the elements down, obviously, and I didn't want to mess on them. I wanted the splatter just in the background. So I've just covered certain areas and just sort of done it in the corners, as you can see. And it has worked. I wanted only a little bit of the black, so I think it worked out pretty well. But going forward, I need to remember to do this maybe before all the elements get stuck down. And there we're done. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. I want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you got some inspiration for your own projects. All links will be in the description below, and please subscribe to my channel. I have some more videos coming every week, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.